A little weak there on the second one. I guess it's the 5th year of Dragon Ball FighterZ, the anniversary of it. Do I have anything to actually say about the game? To be honest, I don't have anything to really say about the game that I haven't said before. So sorry if I sound unenthusiastic as usual, but I'm just not one of those hot take people, right? I'm the dude that actually, more calmly judges a game, tells people how it's going to work, So it's like the game is, there's no thought that I can tell you that I haven't already told you before. It's like some people probably take it as me like sucking myself off or jacking myself off, like, oh, he's just talking about how right he was again. It's like, but I've been right about all these games. That's why I said I realized years ago I could leave games like forever and no one would catch up with everything I've done. I mean, for Dragon Ball FighterZ, again, my thoughts are just, again, I say what I said before. I feel like it's the biggest drop ball in the history of fighting games that I can think of because, God, it's so hard to even pump myself up to talk about these topics because this is one of the reasons that I've lost almost all complete interest in fighting games because I'm a grown man. I've already done all of this. I've talked about this all. These opinions don't change, I mean, when you sell, Dragon Ball FighterZ, it was going to sell even if it was a complete shitty game. Dragon Ball FighterZ, Ultimate Battle, fuck my shit. These games, they fucking sell millions of copies, right? Terrible Dragon Ball Z games sell millions of copies. So the idea that you have to make a Dragon Ball Z game for a beginner, so to speak, it actually has no real precedent because people are going to buy the games when the game is almost basically technically for nobody besides the fan. It being a good or a bad game almost doesn't matter from a certain perspective because people are going to buy it anyway, right? That's why they had a unique opportunity with this game because you can see, and I've said this before, when you make a fighting game, when you make a product, you have to sell the product to the consumer that might not normally buy the product, that might normally go gravitate to something else, that might normally gravitate to its Street Fighter. Maybe it could be, a Soul Calibur, a Tekken, a Virtual Fighter, maybe a 3D game, maybe, a Guilty or King of Fire, whatever. You have that consumer that, what fighting game do I buy? Not every person buys every fighting game, so which one do I want to buy? And Dragon Ball Z, how do you sell Dragon Ball Z to that specific consumer that does not want to buy the game specifically just because it's Dragon Ball Z? They specifically want to buy a game because it's a new perspective on a fighting game, an aspect of a fighting game that they cannot enjoy in any other fighting game. If they want to play this, they got to do that. That's why I've said before, and it's fucking true because I've said before, even other fighting games, if there is a reason for you to play a fighting game, even if it's small, certain consumers will do it, right? Think about me, an example. Why have I played Karno's Revenge before? Karno's Revenge is not the most amazing fucking fighting game whatsoever, right? I play it because specifically, I just think that Mizuguchi is a cool character in the game. So every now and then, I've played the game before, Just so happens that I happen to be very good at it, like many video games. That wasn't the reason, right? I just played because I thought Mizuguchi was cool. That was my reason for playing the product, okay, so to speak, right? So if you think about Dragon Ball FighterZ, how do you get a consumer to play this game that does not automatically care about Dragon Ball Z characters? And you got to be like, okay, well, this has to have an aspect of a fighting game that I can't enjoy in anything else. And that's where Dragon Ball FighterZ should have succeeded because it had that homing dash, tug of war, the tug of war between fireballs, homing dash, and reflecting, right? That is an aspect of a fighting game that you cannot do in any other fucking product that you are selling to the fucking consumer. Ryu does not fucking homing dash. He doesn't fly through the air. You know what I mean? He's not reflecting. He's not homing dashing. Soul Calibur characters aren't doing that. You know what I mean? King of Fighter characters aren't doing it. Guilty Gear characters aren't doing that. But Dragon Ball, that is a new kind of mind game that you could appreciate. That consumer would only be able to, enjoy if they play Dragon Ball FighterZ. And because of that, that also gave the company a new chance to make a new archetypical character that you can only enjoy in that game, right? So just like we have the cliche idea of grapplers, you know, Dragon Punch characters, Fireball Dragon Punch characters, those kind of things, right? These cliche ideas of characters. Again, in fighting games now, a lot of fighting games are generally, it's a background, it's music, it's two characters fighting. There's not much new spin you can do on it. So one of the only new things you can do in a fighting game is the system, right? That's one of the only new ways you can make the fighting game interesting. That's why I talk about King of Fighters is so boring, because the system is not new anymore. It's boring, it's stale, and every time they fucking make a game now, excuse me, it's just, oh, what does your move do? It juggles. Oh, what does your move do? It juggles. Oh, what is your new EX move? Oh, it juggles. It's not new, it's boring, right? The novelty is over. You know, these aren't systems that can even create new characters. But Dragon Ball FighterZ, not only did it have a new system, so to speak, it had a system that allows you to make a new archetypical character that you can now appreciate. So if we're thinking about that Karno's Revenge example that I gave, look at a character like Mizoguchi being able to aim dizzy spots. That sort of character does not exist in any other fucking fighting game besides Karno's Revenge. That is a reason why I have had a passing interest. Now you might say, oh, well, what do you mean, Clayton? You played the game once in a fucking year. True, but that's just because I'm old and I don't care about games as much anymore. I've already been there, done that. But it still has gotten me to play, right? Obviously, when you're younger, you're a little bit more inclined to play video games if that's the hobby that you enjoy. But Dragon Ball FighterZ, you're like, wow, we can have characters that specifically an archetypical character that now you can only appreciate if you do this. And serendipitously, I've talked about Vegito happened to be one of those characters. If you look at that character, and that's why I always say Vegito, he's my favorite character in Dragon Ball Z. Not in Dragon Ball FighterZ specifically, but the idea of him, I've always liked kick characters. I like laser swords. I like, you know, Final Kamehameha. It's got electricity, but it's like, you know, he looks cool. He's very anime to me in a silly way that I appreciate even as an adult. I think he's cool. Double voice, it's appealing to me. But you think about him in the game, and that's why I made so many videos on it, especially like the Banshee Blast, the split finger shot, whatever you want to call it, right? Because if you look at that move, there's a move, that move cannot exist in any other fighting game unless you play Dragon Ball Z, because the spread shot, it's just too big. It looks oppressive at face value. But then when you like indulge into the game at even a basic beginner value or like, you know, level, you see like, oh, well, I can fly through it. I can reflect through it, right? You see the way that Vegito is actually set up in the game. He has foundation for a new archetypical character that a consumer can only get if he plays Dragon Ball Z. There will always be a reason for him to play Dragon Ball FighterZ 10, 15 years down the line, because you'll never be able to get a character that you can play like that. Because he's not only does he take advantage of that system that you can, you know, is in the game, he's also a character that uses it. And that's why I say that even you could have had new characters that then you could have counters to this kind of character. You could have had characters that, you know, suck you dry like a fucking vacuum cleaner, right? Like fucking the android, the fat android. I don't remember their names. It's been, again, I'm a nerd, but I don't remember all these. Fat android, Dr. Gero, and the other fat android. I don't remember what it is, right? Those could have been counters to this character. So you could have had these cliche, say, you have cliche characters of, you know, the zoner characters that are in other fighting games. Then you have the cliche character like Vegito, who really, you know, shows off that fireball reflecting tug of war dynamic in the game, right? But then because of that, you could have also had some characters that, you know, counter those characters specifically. And in a tag team game as well, I've said before, a tag team game actually gives you more reasons to make such stereotypical, archetypical character strengths, because you can have a character that, you know, goes so far on one side of the spectrum, right? That they are, quotation marks, maybe unbalanced in certain ways. You know, it's like a fucking video game. Oh, I have 100 strength, but my speed is a 10 or some shit like that. These characters, you can then sort of, you know, compensate for their weaknesses with another character in the team. That's the one. I don't care about tag team games, really. You know, I just do what I do because I can do it. But, you know, tag team games specifically, you know, they're not games that, you know, I care to play really, but I can appreciate what they are. And you can see a tag team game, you know what I mean, logically speaking, if you look at it, that is the beauty of a tag team game, that you can have these weird kind of tag team, you know, dynamics of characters, weird kind of synergy. That's the fucking part of the novelty of the tag team game versus the single player game or 1v1 game, right? And you know, Dragon Ball Z, they dropped the ball. They could have had more characters use the Dragon Ball mechanic. You already have fucking Super Saiyan 4 GT Goku, whatever his name was, right? You could have had Omega Shenron that also uses the Dragon Ball mechanic. So you could have had some team synergies about, this is my team specifically based around this. You know, you have those cliche ideas of people like, oh, you have the Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you had the fucking Doctor Doom, Strider sort of, you know, core synergistic kind of effect. You know, these games have different, they could have had more synergies, right? But like I said, the problem with Dragon Ball Z is they didn't have people telling you that this is a fucking good idea. And instead, like I say, so many problems with the game nowadays is they don't actually, you know, trust what they're doing, right? And they sort of like baby down these games. Like I said, Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know, there's so many things they could have done with the game, but they ended up making it a baby game, so to speak. A lot of stupid fundamentals. Oh, we don't have block damage. We don't have all this. You hear people complain about the game. They don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Oh, you can't have block damage in this game because whatever. It's like, why? People don't make good arguments, right? You know what I mean? So the game, I've made so many videos about why the game is a failure. And I say that because you can see there's so many chances of what they could have done with this game. And it just, you know, they just, at the end of the day, they put down, the system is like secondary. It's sad because the system, you see there's good ideas here that they should have like fertilized like a seed, right? That you planted these seeds, you should have fertilized it, but they're like, fuck, it's a Dragon Ball Z and we better make it a baby game, I guess, right? Other than that, you know, I don't have much to say about Dragon Ball FighterZ. You know, I just look at the game and I just think, like I said before, you can look at all the footage of the game, 6 months of the game, look at all the people that were considered the top in the game, Tatsu, Nakio, all they did was ABC special. The game was absolutely, it looked terrible. You know, how many people were like, oh, this isn't, you know, I was like, dude, you guys aren't playing the game well. You can tell this is how the game is going to work. Just try it. And people didn't believe me. People thought double supers were fake. All these sparking loops were fake. I mean, look at people like Buttmonger and all these guys who thought sparking loops were fake for so long. Go look at the videos of him that first year of Dragon Ball Z trying to say all my videos were fake and they don't work in real matches. You know what I mean? And then look at that. It took a year before people even started doing homing dash rejumps. And I was doing those in the beta, right? I just look at the game and I think, you know, morally speaking, I think like, man, there's never been a fighting game where one person has done as much for a fighting game as I've done for it. And I look at all these guys fucking that they've made. Look at all these guys. Look at guys like Majin Obama, Buttmonger, Lord Knight, you know, all these guys, you know, look at their YouTubes and how their YouTubes exploded after Dragon Ball Z. You know, look at how many fucking content creators man, look at these, some of these combo guys too, just guys that only do combos. Look at some of these combo guys, they had like no subs. And all they do is they just rehash my old combo videos that people used to say was fake for clout. Isn't it crazy that the person that did the most for this game benefited the least? And so I think about that, and Dragon Ball FighterZ is, like I said, unless I even realized this a few years ago, I'm like, man, Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know, I came into Dragon Ball FighterZ, I was like, you know what, I'll come back for this game just to prove that I am the best ever at being able to predict the game. I'm the best combo guy ever. I'm the best tech lord ever. I'm going to prove it once again. You know what I mean? I was like, you know, I kind of wanted to play Vegito, but I'll come back just for this game because people want to say that it's fake, not going to be real. I'll come back just to prove once and for all that I'm the best ever at this. And I think I easily fucking proved that through 5 years of the game. And not only that, and not only did I prove it easily, I also proved just how much the community is jealous about me. Because you see, the person that benefited the least from this game, despite doing the most for it, despite doing more than anyone has ever done anything for a fighting game single-handedly, I benefited the least, and so many haters of mine benefited the most while lying about it. It's a really, and like I said, I realized that even a couple years into the game. That's why I made that video. I'm like, wow, I could really leave fighting games forever, and no one's ever going to catch up to me. No one will ever do what I've done in fighting games. I did Guilty Gear Strive, and after that, look at Guilty Gear Strive. Predicted that game. You know what I mean? Look at Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 has turned out exactly how I fucking said it would too. You know, I just think, I guess the final version of Street Fighter 6 is not out, but for what it's worth, the betas and all this kind of stuff, people thought, oh no, you know, and like Street Fighter 6, all people do and post on Twitter, the stuff that I talked about, oh, with parry to drive rush combo, whatever. It's like, wow, isn't that exactly what I said? Man, I want to see how fast that is if it works. That's all fucking people do, dude. It's like, come on, man. Again, it's hard to be enthusiastic about this stuff, but it's like, it is what it is. I was right again, you know, and I just think Dragon Ball FighterZ, it's such an asterisk mark on my legacy in video games that, man, Clayton Chapman is just a guy that better than everybody else to the point that people have to lie about it. And the fact that other people have profited off it is just, you know, it's crazy to me. But anyway, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Drop Ball. I talk about these topics all the time in detail in other videos. Remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. You know, I don't make a lot of videos anymore, and I don't know really when I'm going to again. So, again, I do appreciate it if you ever donate to the channel for everything I've done, because, again, I don't know when I'm actually going to make videos again. But anyway, thanks. The end.